Kane Roberts. Well, at the time I was playing a lot of those clubs that look like bomb shelters, you know, where there's no window, it just says Budweiser outside, you don't really want to go in there. Occasionally you see a guy going in and out of there at like 8 in the morning, you know, it's like, I'm glad I'm not him. But then, you know, there I am walking in and actually working there. You know, my band, we'd play usually for the door, you know, I'd go home with $11.87 at the end of the night. In order for me to survive, at that time, I was dealing cards at this illegal blackjack game in New York. So I would end a show, and then I'd show up at some different hotel conference room. It was always in a different location. The guy would show me around and say, okay, you know, the guns are up here. This is where this gun is. He'd open up cabinets and stuff like that. So, you know, in order to survive that, it was a bit of a struggle. But, you know, people always say, well, why does this person make it and this person doesn't? Well, I think a lot of it is just, you know, of course there's that luck factor, but really how are we ever going to even be concerned with that? Because it either comes along or it doesn't. I think it's just perseverance and just the way your mindset is. So I was fully engaged with the rock deal. You know, I would see Van Halen, I see Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, bands like that, and I said, geez, you know, I want some of that. And so I kept trying. I was working hard, and then I would sneak into the studio. I would get there for free. Some engineer or an assistant would record or whatever, and I'd walk out of there with all these tapes. And I was sitting there going, geez, you know, why the fuck haven't I made it yet? And a friend of mine said, has anybody heard your music? So nobody really had. I hadn't sent it around. So I started sending the tape around, and a guy named Don Passione at this defunct publishing company called Screen Gems ended up giving it to Bob Ezrin, who was working with Alice Cooper at the time. He's always been part of that family. And Alice came up to see me play. He didn't tell anybody that he was there. People recognized him, but you know, I actually ended up, I got in a fight with somebody off the stage that night. And Alice didn't care, you know, he's got the mindset, I think his set or his stage very often is kind of a culture of violence. So, you know, they called me up. I went down there. I walked into this office. There's, you know, platinum records all over the place. And I really got the sense that I was among people who had changed history. They'd innovated. The culture of the world was affected by what they had done and what they had created. I go into a big office there. Ezrin's there, and he's got a big picture window behind him. And I'm sure that I was sitting in a seat that was like really low, so I had to look up at him. And, you know, he started telling me, you know, what it was going to be like to work with Alice Cooper. And he said, he started breaking me down. He said, Kane, you know, you're 50% of a good writing team, which means, you know, you need somebody. So you need Alice Cooper. Now go in and meet him. So I met Alice Cooper. We became great friends, and then we just started writing. And I remember I went back to my place, and he left. I was playing strip clubs on rock night, you know, and suddenly I get the call, you know, come on out, we're going to have you write with Alice Cooper in Maui for 3 months. And I said, okay, well, I can get into that. You know, so then they fly me to Beverly Hills. I'm at Shep's place. A couple of naked girls come running out and jump in the pool. And I was going, all right, this is me now. You know what I mean? So I totally got into it. And it's really funny because suddenly, you know, the money goes way up. I was making a lot of money suddenly. Then I get a record deal, you know, and the budget for that is stunning compared to what they give new artists today. And I figured that this was going to continue, you know, for the rest of my life. So you just settle into it. I lived this totally exorbitant lifestyle. I mean, we were touring through Belgium, and the bus is going from show to show. I was following the bus in a limo with this girl I met in Paris, you know what I mean? I remember Alice said to somebody, they told me later that he was going, well, he'll learn, you know, he's just, you know, burning through his money or whatever. And, but it ended up being a great experience, and, you know, working with Alice Cooper and people like that, you know, I just sort of settled into the jet stream, and, you know, I loved it. Alice and I just hit it on a spiritual, music, and friendship level. And I think that was critical at the time for both of us, you know what I mean? Because Alice was coming I didn't even know at the time. He was coming off of like a serious rehab thing. And the guy's an insane survivor. So if you look at the photos of him right before he went into rehab, there's no way somebody like that could survive. And then, you know, he came out of it kind of a healthier guy, and then, you know, then he wanted to do this comeback. And, you know, I told him, I said, Alice, you know, if we come out and we sound like the band from the Welcome to My Nightmare from that era, people are going to say you survived rehab. And what I said was, you have to come back as the nuclear Alice. You've got to come and just tear through everybody. So we redesigned, or we added a new sort of a heavy metal element to all of his classic songs and all the new songs that we were writing. And you can see it. There's one tape, one film. Our first gig was at Joe Louis Arena. So you can hear it, like the place is packed, and you can hear the strains from the keyboard. And Alice says, "Welcome to my nightmare," and the crowd explodes, and it sounds like the old band. And then suddenly it explodes into this heavy metal barrage of sound, and Alice kicks down this gate and comes out, and that's his re-entry into the rock world. When he saw me play, he could tell the music I was playing was very metal, was very heavy. And my attitude, I mean, I'm kind of hyper, and I really was back then. And so one of the things they liked is, as soon as I got down there and met him, you get that feeling of, you know, the jet stream that you're walking into, and I always accepted it. I never got nervous or something. I was always, you know, really excited, and I understood and respected, you know, what had gone on before me. I knew who Bob Ezrin was. I knew who Alice Cooper was. But, you know, I felt like, you know, if somebody sits you down, you fit there. So that's the kind of the attitude that I had. And I realized that, you know, Ozzy Osbourne was out there, all these metal bands, all this really vibrant, vital music. And the last thing Alice wanted to do would be an oldies but goodies band. I just thought that's not what was right for him. He needed to tear into the music scene and come back, you know, full bore and represent something current. You know, what happens in the music industry is that there's a lot of considerations that go on through record companies. So while you're out there touring, and you know, you're partying after the shows, and you're getting on the bus, and you're doing whatever you're doing, there's people in there's executives, there's suits in different offices in the music industry. There's the management, and they're all trying to think what's the next phase for what's Alice going to do to up the ante from where he is. At that time, the record sales were, you know, moderate. The tours were killing. I mean, everybody was coming out to see this band, and they wanted to see Alice Cooper, and they got this heavy band with great musicians, and they got this, you know, big guitar player, and he's got this guitar that shoots flame. You know, it was all part of it. Of course, they were there to see Alice Cooper, but you know, the backdrop to him was kind of intense. As time went on, I think what they wanted to do was they wanted to get him some viable hits. And I think one of the things that they wanted to do was to hook him up with Desmond, excuse me, with Desmond Child, was the ultimate hit writer. I mean, he, at that time, truly prolific. You know, I wrote with him, if we had 15 minutes, you walk out with a song. It may not be 100% complete, but I've written with guys, you're sitting there for 2 hours, and you know, you might have a little bit of a verse. That's not the way he operated. When I wrote with Paul Stanley, same thing. It's just you go in, you're all about the work, and you leave with some item, something that's going to possibly generate you know, some action, some energy, and some equity at the end of the day. So, so what was happening was I suddenly got another record deal, and my record deal was on Geffen, and Alice Cooper got another record deal. And so it seemed like, you know, creatively they wanted us to move in different directions. But I mean, the intention really was to do a third tour. I had another gun guitar made. It looked more like what Sigourney Weaver had for the Aliens movie when she walks down and locks and loads. A pretty intense item. But we just decided not to. It was very amicable. And the story that Alice Cooper always tells, and it's very true, because he lived with me, you know, at my house whenever we were working together. So he would spend maybe 6 months of the year just hanging out. And I got a knock on the door. It was first thing in the morning. I was sleeping, and I said, "What?" Alice opens the door, and he's got 2 bags, and he's standing there, and he goes, "I'm leaving you." So it was like some scene out of a movie, and I said, "All right," and he left. We were laughing and everything, and he took off. But we're still, great friends today. We were, the day we met, and it's the same now. When I think of that particular time, there's a guitar player that he's well known. He's got a name. I won't mention who it is. But he was in New York, okay? And he was doing what I did. He was practicing guitar every day like crazy. There were all these naysayers surrounding him saying, "You're never going to go anywhere. There's a million guitar players trying to do what you want to do. Why is it going to happen for you?" He had a band. He was playing at clubs. He was writing. He got all of his skills fired up. He had every plate spinning, and he goes, "Now I'm going to go to LA." This was like 92. He shows up, and there's nothing. There's no rock clubs. There's no rock scene. There's no CDs. The Tower Records was starting to close, and all this stuff was happening. And he was the same model of all these kids that had come before him, and he showed up too late, like 2 years too late or something like that. And so, the question, he said to himself, why or how could that happen? A lot of people have a lot of explanations for it. They say it's a proactive move by the record industry, or metal, there were too many bands, or they were writing songs that weren't that good. The thing is that if you look through history, any sort of industry, especially the taste in music, there are cultural shifts all the time. So it was real. It wasn't the record company necessarily that did it, because if there was a true desire, a need for heavy metal that looked like that sounded like that, the audience or the people or the consumers, the supposed demographic would not have deserted them, because it happened for real reasons. There was a younger crew coming up in terms of the kids, and the kids that buy music and go to shows. And the fact that Nirvana was a fantastic record, it was an iconic step into a new style of music. But that had happened before, and it didn't necessarily change everything. Records like Def Leppard's records, they were phenomenal, the first one that came out. But what had happened, I think, is similar to some of the things that are going on today. I mean, if you want to analyze what's happening with these sort of younger people today, not that I'm some cultural analyst or whatever, but I mean, most of them that I talk to, they don't really want to own anything. They don't want to own a car. They'll take Uber. They don't want an apartment. They'll live at home, a house. They'll live at home or in an apartment. They don't want to own a CD. They don't even want to download music. They want to stream it, so it just doesn't even exist. And their lives are on their cell phones, as opposed to big computers and books and all these things that you need. Culture changes. Technology has a lot to do with it. Technology's cut the legs out from under so many industries. And I think the fact that style of music kind of hit the skids. I think it's just part of that same process as cultures shift through different phases and different desires. And so I mean, my thought was, going back to what I first said, I really thought it was going to go on forever, And I came out of my Geffen record. I had a record, I got a top 40 hit and all that stuff. And then, it was just like the first time actually that I saw Guns N' Roses. I said, this is fucking amazing. This is going to be amazing. And then when I saw Nirvana, I thought the same thing. I was unaware that there was also sort of these winds of change that were taking place. So, if somebody was saying, well, what's the marker? I guess it is Nirvana, but people like to think in the music industry that they change the world, or the media thinks that they change the world. The truth is that people change the world.
So tell me how